Hi, I started to record something, and it's a cute little camera I have, inexpensive, from Pure Digital. It's really nice little camera. But the batteries don't last too long. I wish they would design something with, you could plug in with a transformer or something. Anyway, uh, I wanted to read a little bit about the danger of Ouija boards before we get back into reincarnation. The author writes, coincidentally, this is Richard Zenner, you can see it, the medium, and this was the author, Philip Hastings. The book Margie Answers You, which, as I said, might be very hard to find. um, Philip Hastings, the author, writes, "In my younger days, I teased my parents for what was a great fad at the time, a Ouija board. They were foolishly indulgent enough to get one for my sister and me, but it never worked, at least so that we could be certain it wasn't our imaginations. Maybe I'm glad it didn't when I heard the answer Margie gave to the following question. Margie, my sister and I used to work on a Ouija board, which was given to us for Christmas. Sometimes we got some rather strange answers. Was it our subconscious minds making the indicator move, or was it moved by spirits?" Answer. Well, in the first place, I want to say that it is not very advisable to work with the planchette or Ouija board. Very few people have received information over the Ouija board that was of any value at all. Usually it yields nothing but profanity and foolishness. Also, people who promiscuously invite spirit communication by this means, or by automatic writing, find on occasions that they are possessed by an entity and find it difficult to free themselves from the entity because of their sensitivity and because they have let themselves become vulnerable to control. And so, as we have been advised more than once, many have been misled unmercifully. I guess in the spirit or astral world, they're not all saints. If they were bad here, they're bad there. If they were mischievous here, they are there. And some of them take great delight in confusing people and pretending to be something they're not, and so forth. And they're really very low-level, unevolved spirits. So that's why she doesn't want to advise Ouija boards. Sometimes it is one's own hand that makes the indicator move. Sometimes it is spirit. More often it is wishful thinking or imagining. About automatic writing. Now, I do have a friend who does automatic writing. She writes marvelous short stories. They're just incredible. Not published either. And and she does paintings through an automatic process or through control. So it's all very positive in her case, but it's not certainly true. This is a little book I wrote for kids with a friend, The Forest Monster of Oz. On another segment I did, or another series, I mentioned some other books we did. The Magic Sneakers I did on my own, and Dorothy's Mystical Adventures I did on my own, and Chris, my friend Chris, and I wrote this one, and Abducted to Oz. But this is one of the illustrations that my friend did. She she channels sort of, quite unique. I don't know if you can see that. Another one here is really quite something, I think. And in her own right, she's a pretty good painter, an artist, but it's much more traditional, um, you know, drawings, much more traditional. So it's a vast difference between her drawings that she does and the ones that are channeled. Totally, completely different. Anyway, uh, I can't see any more right now, but back to the book. Um, find the part on. People that say, certain religious groups say spirit communication is a terrible sin. We shouldn't disturb the spirits. We shouldn't disturb the dead, and so forth. And she says, well, this is a misconception if I ever heard one. I'll try to be as brief as I can and still give the answer. First, to her concern that we do not call back the so-called dead. The so-called dead are all around and about us by necessity, and for reasons we can easily understand when we go into the subject more deeply. It is that the spirit returns, and when it returns, it tells us that it lives again, and what it has encountered. For show me and truly that there is a man who is a good father who does not want to return, and let his wife and children know that he still lives. For he will be a good father to the end, even though he is out of the flesh. Since he's out of the flesh, he may find it difficult, if not impossible, to communicate with the mother and children, but he will have a strong desire to do so. Communication with them is perfectly proper. To communicate with spirit is as natural as the air you breathe. Now, on the other hand, the quality of the communication that can be carried out on is another matter. This can be determined by the individual when a session is carried out. Now, some people say you must not call back the dead. You don't call back the dead, nor is it true that a medium can call back anyone from the spirit world to communicate with you. This is a false statement. Rather, you bring your loved one with you into the seance room by your sympathetic relationship with them, a relationship which enables them to make themselves known to you. You say that we are not to disturb the dead. We do not disturb the dead. Rather, it is often the dead that might be said to have disturbed the mortal, and for various reasons. Just because the spirit has stepped out of the physical body into a dimension that is removed from the dimension of humanity, it does not follow that it is not just as natural for him to return and be the same individual that he was on earth, and easily recognizable as such. He can be a progressive or an unprogressive entity, just as he chooses. I've lost my part on reincarnation, which is pretty interesting. Well, we can get that. Here's another one. Is there a definite time for each person to make a transition from the earth to the other side? No, this is a false conception. Some think that there is a particular day on which it is so written that they are going to die. We must try to understand that the approximate period when a person will be freed from the physical body is determined through his actions and his behavior in the interim. What I do now in this life has an influence on when I shall leave it. If it is an act that uses a great deal of energy, it will of necessity dissipate my physical forces, bring on a diseased condition, and perhaps hasten me toward the grave. Therefore, I can take the initiative to change the picture and prolong my life. This I can do by conquering that which has been conquering me, although perhaps I had been unaware of it having conquered me. So there is no special day to set for one to be freed from the physical body. The scientific world can prove that through proper feeding, one can prolong his lifespan from 10 to 20 years. Therefore, that theory doesn't hold water, does it? There's a lot of interesting questions here. Let's see what the time is. The next question is, I sometimes meet people I thoroughly dislike for no reason at all. Was there some previous relationship that caused this? No, not necessarily. You meet someone you dislike, you have no reason to be against him. You've had nothing to do with him before this time, and yet you find yourself disliking him. Usually there are two reasons by which you can account for this. First, the vibration emanating from this person causes you friction and distress, whether positive or negative. Then, two, the person may be in some particular resemble a person with whom you have had an unpleasant experience, who has dealt unfairly with you at some previous time in life. Perhaps in your impressionable childhood, this feeling automatically rises to the surface of your objective mind when you meet the person, and when it does, you feel distressed in his presence. Why is someone born who cannot hear, cannot talk, or move about, etc.? I think I have time on this section. Hang on.